Welcome back to the channel, folks, and to our second edition of Flames of War 101. This episode is all about assaults. What we're not going to do in this episode is tell you what the assault rules are. You've got to read the book for that, folks, read it and understand it. Something I need to do myself a hell of a lot when I'm playing the game. Now, not just the book, but you've also got to understand what you're using and how it may be different from the average team of its type. You know, what's on the cards. So read the book, check your cards, and then you'll be good to go. In this video, I'll be talking about some principles that I apply when I'm thinking about either launching assaults or defending against assaults. When I see a lot of players assaulting, it's kind of like, okay, it's turn 2, I better assault. It's just like charge across the tabletop as fast as you can and fling an assault in. But you know, that might win, but if it does, the chances are it's going to win because of a couple of dice rolls. So it's more about hope than intention, shall we say. And whilst hope is good, it's not a good thing to rely on until all you have left is hope itself. So just like in the Ambush 101 video that's on the playlist already, if you've not seen it, folks, check it out. I'm going to go to the tabletop now and show you some rough examples of the principles and talk you through them. If you have heavy weapons, such as heavy machine guns or mortars in your platoon, put them up front to form a sort of screen to protect you against assaults, and they can also carry out their normal function before the assaults begin. Now, if we look at this situation here, we replaced that heavy machine gun with a base of infantry, and the base of infantry is destroyed. The heavy machine gun cannot counterattack in the assault phase and plays no further part unless it is closed in on by the attacking teams. But if we do the other way around and the heavy machine gun is destroyed, the infantry can counterattack and potentially destroy an enemy team. Apply the same principles to bazookas, panzerschrecks and such likes. If you put your panzerschreck out in the front line, you might feel you've got a better field of fire, but it could get killed by that first initial contact, which means you've got an ordinary base of infantry to counterattack with, whereas the Shrek can still counterfire here, but if the infantry is destroyed, the Shrek can move into counterattack and carry out its potentially much more deadly role of striking in assault. So the principles here are: create a defensive box which will minimise the initial impact by having as few teams as possible up front and having the weaker teams in terms of assaulting to the front, so that any counter-attack you do mount has the biggest impact. Urban settings are great for defending against tanks in assault because tanks can't enter buildings, but for infantry it can be much more tricky because you could be split up amongst buildings, behind buildings, which is going to reduce the level of counter-fire that you can provide against attacking assaults if your opponent infiltrates, attacks in small numbers. And as well, if you've taken a few casualties, you're going to have even less counterfire by the time you're facing the assault. So if we take a couple of bases away here, we're only going to get 2 bases that are in the building counterfiring, and everyone else is out of line of sight. Now, that means you're likely to lose the first 2 bases and then counterattack with less. You might not even get every base in because of the distance that you're spread out across the buildings. So consider carefully how you are going to deploy against all the potential avenues of assault. Or you may lose one building and a couple of teams at a time, turn by turn. When you're the defending player, let's say holding that objective, and you have a lot of tanks in front of you who've maybe been assaulting you already and taking some casualties, you have to be careful and not too aggressive. let's say you've got a Faust and a Shrek still left here. So you think, I'm going to finish these guys off, and you go in for the assault. The guy at the back can't get in, let's say, and you kill one, let's say. So the opponent counterattacks, passes, and then you counterattack and fail, and you break off. Well, that's you lost the game, because you've got to break off sufficiently far away to meet the rules, which is going to put you out with 4 inches off the objective. So you might want to remember, as a defender, it's as much about holding on to objectives as it is about destroying enemy teams. For optimal counter fire and counter attacking, keep your Fausts, Shreks, Zooks and such likes within 4 inches of the front edge of the most forward bases. Now, your anti-tank guns, you want to keep them out with 6 inches but within 8 inches of the front. That way they can counter fire, but they're not going to be affected by being driven off at all. It can present a big lump of a target for artillery, but that might be unavoidable anyway. And also, bear in mind, if your infantry break off, you don't want to be pushed back in one turn from the objective, so make sure you're far forward enough that you can afford a 6-inch break off and still be within 4. Whether you are defending or attacking in an assault, remember your company command. Most assaults end with a failed motivation, so getting the company commander in a position where he is able to give re-rolls is vital. Now remember, he may have to be within 6 inches of the platoon command when the assault begins, or for when the contact is made. If your platoon commander is going to be moving forward, it may take him out of command distance, so just bear that in mind when you're placing your company command, so you're going to get that vital reroll, which can make all the difference for winning the assault. In almost every case, you're going to want to pin the platoon that you want to assault. They may be pinned already, or you may pin them with weight of fire from the advancing units. Remember, if you're launching an assault, it's your moving rate of fire, so you can use machine guns, main guns, clock up those hits, or you could use an artillery template. Just remember the standoff distance from that, guys, if you're already very close to the target unit. There is also the option of smoke. If that's in your arsenal, I know it's not the case in Soviets, guys, this is just to demonstrate it, then you will be able to get a real advantage, make you a lot harder to hit, especially against pinned Panzerschrecks, Fausts, bazookas and those kind of things, because they'll already be at a penalty of 1 to hit. And don't forget, certain tanks have direct fire smoke, which isn't subject to mistaken target, so you could pick out individual things such as Shreks and make it harder for them to hit you, and therefore more likely for you to get into the assault. Woods are a great place to defend against tanks if you've got infantry or gun teams. Tanks have to make cross checks, so they might not even make it into assault. And every time there's a counter attack, they're going to have to make a cross check. So it's very useful for reducing the effectiveness. And if you can stay in the assault and the tanks, maybe they've already got something bailed, but even if they don't and they have to break off, they need to do another cross check. And if they fail that, they're going to be destroyed. So you could be picking up tanks by taking that approach. And it's the same if there's any linear obstacle that is going to potentially be in the way of a retreating tank. Even such things as hedges or walls, if they're behind where the breaking off tank is, once again they've got to make a cross check, and if they fail that cross check and they're within that 6-inch bubble, they're going to get captured too. So think about this kind of terrain when you are choosing where to place your defensive platoons. Let's say you've got your guys in the perfect position to get an assault in. It's critical. If you don't get that assault in, your tanks might be stranded in the open. Don't shoot the team that you need to assault. If it means not shooting at all, then it's probably more important that you get your assault in rather than fire a few shots to maybe hit another team in the platoon. In this case, you get your assault in and you're probably going to roll up all of those anti-tank guns, so don't shoot the golden goose. You can't always rely on firepowers to do the right thing for you. Imagine here we're popping an ambush to get these T-34s on the way into that objective. Now, the chances are they're going to do a bit of damage, but there might be some bailed out tanks left at the end of it. So you can be aggressive with infantry against tanks in any circumstances, but in particular where there might only be bailed out tanks sitting waiting for some help coming their way. And let's see here, we've got this one destroyed, one bailed, another one bailed, another one destroyed, and the infantry can hopefully go in, kill a tank whether it's bailed or alive, and then roll up the rest and mop up any bailed out tanks that are left. So finish off the bails. If you are assaulting a target with forward firing weapons, be that main guns or even MGs, get them in the flank. So if you've got the space to manoeuvre, take a minute to go around the side. That way they may get no counterfire at all or very limited counterfire. So here we're attacking with the tanks that are past the front edge of the guns, but we're leaving that tank out on the front by itself because it would be a suicidal attack. Even if those guns were pinned, it would be likely to get destroyed for no benefit. If you have more than one option for assaulting, think about what is the best for you to use. Here there's potential counter fire with Shreks and Fausts, and also with MG fire against the infantry. So where are you going to go first? Who is more likely to get in and to win the assault? Because when it's over and done, if you haven't won the assault, let's say you go in with the infantry and they have to pull back, chances are your tanks are not going to get an assault because the defender can consolidate so that they're more than 4 inches away from any tanks that were in assault range. So choose carefully who is going to win you the assault before you launch. What I call the Conga Line is a way of being aggressive with infantry in a controlled way, so that you're likely to get your assault in. Tanks quite often deploy in lines. Infantry can move out without the old tank fear rule, so you can be confident your attack will go in, and you can go in with the support of other weapons to help finish things off, like bail tanks. But this would work under any circumstances where you can attack in the flank and at least in terms of counter fire, only the tank you are directly opposite is going to shoot at you. You've got less chance of being hit, perhaps more chance of getting in, and once you're in there you've got a very strong chance of driving off those tanks. If they counter attack, you may well get killed, but if you don't, you're going to have your anti-tank weapons, your Shrek, your Faust right in there with the opportunity of doing some real damage. When you're the target of an assault, you do still have some freedom of action within certain restrictions depending on deployment of your enemy forces and terrain and such likes. But imagine here you've got a platoon of tanks and you have infantry blocking your way with another platoon of tanks out of line of sight. Ideally you would like to be dealing with those tanks and shooting them up, but you're going to have to move to get there. So let's imagine your opponent in their turn launches an assault against you. In this case it's from the wood. Maybe that's going to avoid the counterfire, and let's say you get a tank killed. So you can break off, and provided you're breaking off away from the enemy, like I said, the particulars of this move will come down to many different factors. This is just a generalisation. You can move into a position where next turn you're going to start facing the tanks you want to destroy with your full rate of fire without the need to move. And that could be a nasty shock for your opponent. And in general terms, if you're being assaulted, do you need to stay in that assault? Can you back off? Can you pull away and still maintain the attack that you want to attack? Is the assault a distraction designed to keep you away from where you need to be? So think about it, guys. Don't just stay in the assault because one has started and you've got that red assault rage going on. Is it to your advantage or is it to your opponent's advantage? Well, I hope you found that useful, folks. It might be more useful for the less experienced players, but it is good for everybody to consider what they're doing just in case they're forgetting something. So if you've got anything I forgot, stick it down in the comments. If you've got anything that you feel is a better approach to certain situations as well, share them, unless you want to keep it a secret. But it'd be good to share and help the inexperienced players in the community enjoy the game a bit more. Stick your own comments and ideas down below, folks. Thank you for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to all the subscribers. Do appreciate it, folks. And if you haven't subscribed and you'd like to do so, then hit the button and hit the bell button too, which means we'll definitely see you on the next one.